Hello everyone. In this chapter we're going to talk about mobile devices. We're going to talk about some of the hardware used in mobile devices. We'll talk about mobile operating systems. Specifically, we'll talk about open and closed source and the differences that means in Android and in Apple's iOS. We'll also discuss GPS. We'll talk about mobile network connectivity. And finally, mobile synchronization and security. So today, most mobile devices, especially smartphones, are basically small computers. Most use the RISC processor, but that is very dependent on what type of device it is and how old it is. Some of the newer ones use faster processors that are different. Almost all modern smartphones are going to have a touch screen, and while they use a much smaller version, they have DDR memory. They also usually have micro USB ports, and this is a port on the bottom that you use to charge the device with. Mobile devices are generally not upgradable except for software. An exception to that is that with many Android devices, you can add memory by adding a card to the device. Here is just an example of a screen showing a typical smartphone. If you look, this is an older version of Android they're showing here. One thing to be aware of in dealing with operating systems or software in general is the difference in open and closed source. And Android and iOS are a great example to start a discussion on open and closed source. Open source means the code is available on the internet for anyone to download and modify in any way they see fit. Closed source, however, means that the source code is not available to anyone. Apple and Microsoft both used closed source, where Linux and Android tend to be open source. There are pluses and minuses to both. Some people feel that closed source, because it has paid developers and it's the livelihood of a company is better because more people are watching it and making sure it's proper. Some people, though, on the other hand, feel that open source means anybody can download it, so there's lots more people looking at it, looking for errors. And while we don't talk a lot about it, Windows Mobile is another option, and it's slowly gaining a little bit of market ground against these two, Android and iOS. Most mobile devices today have a GPS receiver in them. And what that allows us to do is have devices that have multiple things. Our phone can also be a device to tell us where we're going. With geo-tracking, you can record where you are, at different times. One example of just a program that I'm familiar with is one called Runkeeper. You can turn that on and put your phone in your pocket and then walk around the neighborhood, and when you get home, it'll show a map of where you've been and how long you walked and how many miles you've walked. Most mobile devices today also have more than one radio in them. What I mean by that is they connect to cell phone towers using 3G or 4G or 4G LTE, but they also connect to Wi-Fi using, 802.11 A, B, G, N, or AC. Here they're just giving you an example of adding a Wi-Fi network to an Android system. If it didn't browse for it automatically, you would have to add the SSID. Another thing that most mobile devices support today is Bluetooth. And Bluetooth is great because it allows for a variety of connections over short distances. There are Bluetooth headphones, microphones, keyboards and mice. There are Bluetooth printers. Most newer model cars have Bluetooth built into them, so that instead of touching the phone, if somebody calls you and you're driving, you can use hands-free. And slowly but surely, states are requiring that. I know it has been a law for a while that if you are on an Air Force base, you must use hands-free. You're not allowed to touch your phone, and you'll get a ticket if they see you touch your phone. So some troubleshooting with Bluetooth. Basically, make sure that the batteries in both devices are high enough for a connection. Make sure you're in range. And a lot of the problems with Bluetooth can be corrected just by restarting both devices. If you're having trouble connecting Bluetooth with a car and a phone, for example, turn the car off and back on and then restart the phone, and most of the time that will correct any errors that you have. Another area to be aware of is email. Most devices now are capable of checking email for you. And a popular web-based email that we're all familiar with is Gmail. But also other types do exist, POP3, IMAP, and Exchange servers. In troubleshooting email issues, especially with mobile devices, check internet access. If you don't have access to either Wi-Fi or cellular data, you're not going to be able to get email on your phone. Verify that your usernames and passwords are typed correctly. If you're like me and you change your password on Gmail every couple of months, you're going to need to change it on all your devices or they won't be able to connect. Also, make sure you're using the right port numbers and that the security settings are correct. So here we're looking at mobile synchronization, and this is just one example of many different ways that you can synchronize phones. If you are running an Android device, you're probably syncing everything through Google, and it's going to automatically sync to your Gmail and your computers and whatnot. If you're running an Apple system, you might be running mobile.me or another program very similar to that to sync those things. One thing I'd like to point out on this, USB tethering is a great feature that most Androids support now, and it allows you to use your mobile connection on your phone on your computer. So if you're in an area where you don't have access to a wireless network, but you need to get something on a computer real quick, you can use USB tethering to do that. It's normally slow, but it normally works. Internet pass-through is the exact opposite, where you use the PC to provide internet access to the phone. Here they're showing the Smart Sync screen for HTC. These are going to look a little different based on every type of phone. And here they're showing that same screen, but what it looks like on an iPad or an iPhone. So because mobile devices are small and we carry them with us, there's a much larger chance of them getting lost or stolen. So there are some things you can do to make sure that you try to protect yourself against that happening. Some suggestions they give is to make sure that you have a screen lock, which will help a little bit, but not a whole lot. I strongly suggest that you install some program that will allow you to remotely wipe the device. Now there are pluses and minuses to that. And I'll go ahead to the next screen where they're showing the iPad screen to lock or unlock the device. This would be the same on an iPhone. Other things that they don't talk about here, but newer phones have the capability of using your face to unlock or using a longer passcode. These small passcodes that use just digits are great to keep your phone locked from maybe one of your friends getting on it, but there's really very little security offered from a hacker getting through your phone with one of these. There are mobile devices that are made for police stations and the FBI and things like that that can easily crack a 4-digit passcode on an iPad, an iPhone, or an Android in a couple of hours. You just have to let it run and it will try all the possible connections, and eventually it will make a connection and break through the passcode. The reason I suggest that you install software that will allow a remote wipe is that, in my own opinion, if my device is stolen, my data is more important than the device. And if I know it's truly stolen, I'm going to go on the internet and I'm going to issue a remote wipe command. And that means I may never get the device back, because once I remote wipe it, it's going to lose its GPS connectivity. It's going to delete all my data, all my passwords, everything off of the phone. But in doing so, even though I may not get it back, I know that no one else has my data. So I know that my data is secure. Here they're just giving an example of some things to make sure that you do on your mobile device. They're showing this Android screen, but it doesn't matter if you're Android or iOS. You should keep your phone up to date. The software updates generally, are to plug security holes. A few add features, but a lot of them are to plug security holes. There was a big update not that long ago for Apple that closed a security program hole in SSL in secure connections. So these updates will plug some of those holes. You want to make sure to do them. And I would suggest, if it's possible, plug your phone in before you run one, or make sure you have at least 80 or 90% battery. And for speed, download these over Wi-Fi connections if possible instead of the cellular network. So there are many different types of software made for management of mobile devices. And this is something you may run into in large organizations if they have a lot of people with mobile phones. And what these do is they allow central management. They allow features like I just mentioned about remote wipe. Most of them allow them to turn on and off features on the phone. Some of them will set it so that you cannot turn things off on the phone. For example, I know that I'm pretty familiar with the one for Android, and you can set it so that they're not able to turn the GPS off on the phone. That way you know where the phone is at all times. Finally, if you're having trouble with your device, just like with a computer, really the first thing to try is reset it. And a soft reset is where we're just resetting the phone, just like pushing the reset button on our computer. It'll vary from phone to phone, but find the power button, hold it on, and then normally you'll slide something across the screen, and that'll turn the phone off, then turn it back on. If you're having an issue where one of the radios is locked up, like Bluetooth isn't working or something like that, this soft reset will normally do it. If the phone is really acting up and you're just not sure what else to do, you can try a hard reset. And a hard reset will often fix a lot of the problems, but you're going to lose all of the data that you had. Everything is set back to factory default. With a phone, that means you're basically setting it back to the way you got it from the store. So if you think you've installed something that's acting weird, you can do that, and that will often get you back to where you can actually get on the phone and do whatever you need to do. So in this chapter, we talked about mobile devices, mobile operating systems, mobile network connectivity, mobile synchronization, and security. Thanks for watching, everyone.